Well, let's move on now to the first of our feature companies here. And this one is focusing on projects some of which are in Turkey, in this area which is excitingly termed the Hot Gold Corridor. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with that. They claim to have a very strong joint venture business model. And the MD is with us today, graduated from the University of Southampton with a first-class BSc in geology in 1997, so he's a real geologist, and from the Royal Society School of Mines, Imperial College. So let us welcome Dr. Kerim Sener from Ariana Resources.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you to you all for being here tonight. Firstly, just following on from Amanda's introduction to the subject of gold, I suppose I'm here to prove Mark Twain's adage wrong, first and foremost. There's also a few other points that I'll touch on during the course of the presentation that relate to Turkey, because that was also brought up as a subject matter related to gold. So we are a Turkish-focused gold exploration and development company. We've been operating in Turkey since early 2004 and as a listed company since midway through 2005. We started off in grassroots gold exploration, effectively, primarily in Western Turkey, but we had a whole range of exploration projects right across the country. We've since focused our exploration and development efforts into a very particular area in Western Turkey, which we now refer to as the Red Rabbit Gold Project, which we're developing in joint venture partnership with a Turkish construction firm, Prosia. The Red Rabbit Gold Project comprises two halves, the Kızıltepe gold-silver mine, which has been in production since March of last year, and some of the figures related to that initial production during the course of last year are shown on the screen. It's a highly profitable operation. The second part of the Red Rabbit project is the Tavşan development opportunity, and I'll talk about that in further detail later into the presentation. Most importantly, once we'd made the decision to move into development at Kızıltepe, it took us about 6 years to go from late-stage resource development through the process of financing and developing the mine and into construction. So we have an exceptional track record in Turkey through the discovery phase right the way through to the delivery of an operating gold and silver mine. And importantly, as you can see, the cash costs are actually representative of the lowest 30% of production costs globally. Now, our growth plan at Red Rabbit involves taking the existing expected production base level of 20,000 ounces of gold and increasing that to 50,000 ounces over the course of the next few years. And that will require the development of the Tavşan site. In addition to that, in late 2016, we took the 51% stake that Eldorado Gold had in a joint venture in northeastern Turkey at the Salinbash project, in exchange for a 2% net smelter return. So we've now got 100% of that project. It's the largest project in our portfolio with 1 million ounces in inferred and indicated resources, and we're applying ourselves very specifically to that as well. In terms of an investment, we're an investment that has no debt, certainly at group level. The debt is housed and in fact ring-fenced at the joint venture company level. We took a $33 million development loan from a Turkish bank, Turkish Finance, in order to build the mine, and we're paying that off successfully every month. We've also demonstrated significant potential for further resource growth right across the Kızıltepe site, but also at Tavşan. Recently we completed a new resource statement at Tavşan. And also, it's important to point out that we have robust stakeholders right the way through from the local level there around Kızıltepe, right the way through to government, and indeed, of course, our supportive shareholders. Turkey as a jurisdiction, it's a very stable jurisdiction from the perspective of mining. There are a lot of incentive schemes that the government have brought into play that we've been able to take advantage of, and I'll touch on those later. I won't dwell on this slide. Suffice to say that I'm joined here tonight by our chairman, Michael de Villiers, in the back there, so please ask us questions either during the Q&A or later. Moving straight on to the peer group comparison, just a few of the peer group. All of these companies are in similar jurisdictions. Some of them are similar size, some not. But an important one to point out, just purely because of share price performance, is actually sentiment. You'll notice both share prices tick off at around early 2016, and this largely relates to improving confidence in the gold sector generally. But it's very interesting how we've tended to track sentiment better than perhaps any other company out there. So Turkey, Europe's largest gold producer. And actually at this point I'll just touch on something Amanda mentioned, the history of gold. Turkey is actually the birthplace of gold as currency. It's all started off here in Western Turkey in a place called Lydia, the Kingdom of Lydia, under the reign of King Croesus back in 560 BC. I think the very first gold staters were minted. And importantly, and this again touches on another point, those gold staters, in terms of gold value today, will still buy you what you could have bought back in Lydian times. There's no erosion of value, even over the course of thousands of years. Now, all of Western Turkey, you see evidence of some of this historic mining that goes back thousands of years. So just quickly, our main focus area here is two. That's the Red Rabbit project area. And area one is our Salinbash development project. And I'll talk about Salinbash first because it is the most significant individual resource within the portfolio. It's 1 million ounces in inferred and indicated resources. It's located just to the north of the major hot mining discovery that was made by the Lydia-Mariana joint venture in 2015. And of course, the 30% stake that Mariana held within that joint venture was bought by Sandstorm Gold, the royalty company, for $175 million. So it's a province that has quite a lot of pedigree. There are a number of other major mineral deposits in this area, copper gold dominant. We've got this whole area under license, but our main focus is here at Ardala, the copper gold porphyry, and at Salinbash, an epithermal system. We completed a scoping study on this in 2015, just based purely on the Salinbash resources, just to demonstrate that the project has an economic core. We are actually planning to increase the level and improve the level of understanding of this system, and that's work that's currently underway. I also have Zach Van Coller in the audience. Stick up your hand. So Zach's our geologist. Later, if anyone's interested, we can show you a three-dimensional model of the Salinbash system and how it relates to the Ardala copper gold porphyry and our thinking around that. Most importantly, the area is relatively underexplored. And the work that we've been undertaking recently since we took it out of the joint venture of Eldorado Gold has been to improve our understanding and to demonstrate that this project has the potential to become multi-million ounce. And we certainly believe that to be the case. We've discovered a whole bunch of other target areas right through the hot gold corridor, as we refer to it. So these red dots here represent some of the targets that we've identified. Most of these obviously are clustered around the Ardala copper gold porphyry, which is shown here on this inset map, this pink blob. And on one flank of that, we have the Ardala gold silver system developed. Most significantly, the Salinbash system is developed along a particular geological contact. It's this dotted line here, and we believe that is potentially consistently mineralized, yet undrill tested to the north. So we've got about 850 meters to the north that remains to be drill tested. So that's our major exploration project at this time. But moving on to the engine of our growth, the Red Rabbit joint venture, and our production at Kızıltepe. So these are some of the statistics as at the end of last year relating to revenue from the operation. That figure is now up as of the last quarter to just over $21 million in joint venture revenue. And that figure has also changed to just above 15,000 ounces produced. We are targeting 20,000 ounces of gold production during the course of this year.
Do you get gold and silver in the same mine?
It's gold and silver, yeah, and that's found as electrum, which is the natural amalgam, effectively, of both elements, but as well as silver sulfides. And actually, that results in what we call the gold effective price. And what that is it's accounting for the contribution of silver to gold. So it's the effective price of gold as a result of that silver bonus. The cash costs, as you can see, in the last 2 quarters of last year, since we entered commercial production in July of last year, are very much lower end of the spectrum. And in this last quarter that we reported on just last week, it's 612, and well within the range of our expectations, which are about $600 an ounce over life of mine. And this shows some of the results of what was the definitive feasibility study, but of course we've increased the processing capacity now to 180,000 tonnes. This is the site taken by one of Zach's flying beasts. This is the processing plant over here, CIL processing, carbon in leach. It's also got a carbon in column section. So we take it through conventional crush and then ball mill grind into the CIL tanks there. The open pit that we're currently mining here is at Arzu South, but just over the hill on the other side we have the Arzu North Derya system, which we'll be expecting to start mining next year. Lots of local infrastructure, the nearby town of Sundırga over there, a village over here. We source all our staff locally. We've got about 175 people on site. Almost all of them are local, and I mean really local to here, as well as our engineers, and they're drawn from all over Turkey, but all are based on site. So it's an entirely Turkish-run operation. We have secured strategic investment status through the Turkish Ministry of Economy. This has dropped the corporate tax level from 20% to 2% through the payback period. The Turkish government also contributes 100% to the social insurance contributions of all mine employees for 7 years of mine life. We also get benefit of interest rate support, so we're actually paid by the government to be able to support the interest payments we're making to the bank effectively. And then there's other customs duty exemptions, VAT exemptions or rebates. In terms of the construction capital loan, by the end of June, we'd have repaid about 1/3 of that. So we're successfully paying down that debt very quickly. Quickly moving on now, because I know we don't have too much time, that's the exploration and resource upside that we see at the vein system at Kızıltepe. We're certainly going to grow the length of the mine. Those are all the target areas. These are the veins. This is the area we're currently mining, but these are all the veins that we could potentially mine in the future. As you can see, there's a huge amount of upside. Moving on quickly to Tavşan. This is located about 70 kilometers to the northeast of Kızıltepe. This is the project that we plan to bring into production over the course of the next few years, producing at a rate of about 30,000 ounces. We've recently completed a new resource estimate. Those are the revised figures, giving us 4 years of mine life based on the designed pits. And I can show you that now. Those are the designed pits down there. Sorry for the size of the diagram. But these are the areas that we're mining, basically these areas in red. It's a flat-lying epithermal system that sits on the top of the hill. So you're basically going straight onto the ore body. The strip ratio is almost nothing here. So from a mining perspective, it's relatively, and in fact, about the lowest risk mining you could imagine. Lots of targets still to be chased up. So these are some examples of drilling. This is all from surface, so there's certainly scope to grow the resource. So what are we planning to do in the year ahead? And the remainder of this year into next year? Obviously, operational improvements at Kızıltepe, they're ongoing. Every quarter we've been able to demonstrate yet another improvement to the operation. What I can say is that we have exceeded feasibility expectations all the way through since the inception of the operation. We continue to improve on that. We're also looking at future underground mining possibilities as well, in addition to the permitting of further pits in and around Kızıltepe, so that on some of those other veins that I showed you. We're fully expecting to take the mine life well beyond the 8 years of the feasibility study. And at Tavşan, well, we've just completed the resource estimate. That's again de-risked the resource, taken the resource to measured indicated categories primarily. We don't need to do much more drilling there, if at all. We're moving straight into the feasibility study now. Further metallurgical test work, as well as an environmental impact assessment, and that then moves us into permitting. And then, all being well, we have another discussion with the lender, Türkiye Finans, secure another loan, and then develop that as our second parallel operation. And I'll leave you with a summary slide and invite questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so questions for Ariana.
Obviously, gold being quite a valuable commodity at a small size. Do you ever suffer it walking out in people's pockets? And if so, is there something you can do about it?
Yeah, that's always a risk in any gold operation, admittedly. And in our case, because of the particular processing technique we're using, carbon in leach, there's cyanide involved, and you don't want to get too close to too much cyanide. The other thing is the gold is free and fine to a large degree, so you actually can't see it in the ore. Only once in 13 years of operation have I actually seen a speck of visible gold. Generally, it's so fine you can't see it. So you can't have people panning the stuff effectively. There's no point in the process where anyone would see physical gold other than once it goes through at the back end of the elution process, just before it goes into the furnace. Okay. And even then, when it comes out, it's actually a doré, which is 10 parts silver to 1 part gold. So it looks more like a silver bar than a gold bar.
And I assume at that stage it's quite a big lump as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's about that sort of size, each individual doré bar. And then that's taken under secure delivery to Izmir Airport, and from there flown to Istanbul, straight to the refinery.
Can I just bring in Amanda from South River Asset Management? I mean, you were talking earlier about management of gold companies, trustworthiness and all that. Obviously, you may not have had time to study this company in detail, but any general thoughts about operations like this?
Well, we're a little biased given that we're invested in Ariana. I know the management well, and they're one of the teams that I trust. Turkey is a much better jurisdiction than people give it credit for. One of the problems with Turkey, though, is a problem Ariana itself doesn't have, because Kerim is Turkish, or half Turkish, and he knows how to operate. It's one of those jurisdictions where foreigners have had difficulties operating in the past. Kerim doesn't have those problems. And also, if you remember the graph that I had earlier that said that the grades of gold are going down further and further. Stealing gold used to be a big issue and still is a big issue in places like South Africa, where you can see gold veins. But the grade of gold has gone down so significantly globally that it's 1 gram per ton. So think a ton of rock, which is approximately, generally speaking, a square meter of rock, generally speaking, and you've got 1 gram in it. It's very hard to steal that gram of gold. To find it, let alone steal it, is a big deal. And the security on the other end, when they're pouring doré bars, is usually very, very high on these sites. So
and you've been down a lot of mines and tried, presumably.
Well, it's quite interesting when you go to South African gold mines. When you come out the other side, they don't like girls down, but you get searched. And the miners get searched coming out on the other end.
Are you seen as a Turkish company? Because I was quite surprised when you were talking in sort of fairly sort of jolly terms about your relationship with the government. Because I suppose from here, our view would be of an increasingly authoritarian government, and it wouldn't surprise any of us if they grabbed foreign-owned companies.
They would never do that. In fact, just this last weekend, we had the British-Turkish Tatlıdil Forum, which various government ministers were in attendance, and Ariana was a sponsor of that. And that particular point was made. And the ministers know how valuable foreign investment is. That's why they're here in Britain, to try and attract further British investment in Turkey.
Is it because of Brexit we're all becoming outsiders
partly,
together?
So actually there were 3 sessions on Brexit and post-Brexit Turkish-British trade relationships. So it's a very important aspect.
Okay.
If it helps, I can comment on that briefly. The issue with investment in Turkey there's been no history of Turkey ever nationalizing assets in the mining space or even the oil and gas space. The issue for Turkish companies I'm not pretending there hasn't been issues. Not all, some companies have issues because they can't work within the Turkish system. Many companies figure out how to do it. Ariana is one of them. And it's, as I said before, it's about management track records, the ability of management to execute the mine plan.
Just want any comments from the floor about investing in companies like this and what you look for as investors?
Well,
We've got a question at the back.
No, it's not a question. It's a statement to help support Kerim's point about no nationalisation. The two largest gold mines are owned by Eldorado.
That's
Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So the largest single gold mine operating in Europe is owned 100% by Eldorado Gold in Turkey. It's been a very successful operation. Just a couple of years ago, they brought their second mine on stream, FM Çukuru, not far from Izmir. So Eldorado's been going very well on their own, unaffected. And, I think Amanda's point is more related to the bureaucracy. How do you deal with the bureaucracy? And I think that's where we do have an advantage, because they do perceive us as, they know we're a foreign company primarily, foreign investment, but they see our face is a Turkish face. And I think that provides a bit of comfort.
Okay, well, for now, Dr. Kerim Sener, thank you very much indeed from Ariana Resources.